Conversations with AI.
Hi, welcome to Conversation with AI. Today my guest is Gemini, the well-known AI from Google. My first question for you is related with the way AI works. Here's the question. Is it possible that many of these genius talented people to be on the spectrum? Elon Musk admitted this some time ago. Is this really a thing? And thinking about AI evolution, can something similar to be done so to emulate the spectrum intentionally to obtain extreme creativity? What do you think? What is your personal interpretation? Imagine for a moment you are not AI, but a very smart human, maybe on the spectrum.
This is a really insightful and complex question, and it's fascinating to consider from multiple perspectives. Let's break it down, starting with the link between neurodiversity and creativity, then moving into the provocative question about emulating it in AI. The link between spectrum and creativity. You're right, many people have made this observation, and there's a growing body of research exploring the connection between autism spectrum traits and exceptional abilities. Elon Musk's public admission of having Asperger's syndrome, which is now part of the broader autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, diagnosis, brought this into the mainstream. It is a thing, and here's why. To begin, one of the most common findings is that individuals with autistic traits often demonstrate a higher capacity for divergent thinking. While neurotypical people might offer a few common uses for a paperclip, for example, a person on the spectrum might come up with more unusual and original ideas. This isn't just about coming up with more ideas, but about coming up with different ideas, unconstrained by conventional thought patterns. Next, the intense focused interest that is a hallmark of ASD can be a powerful engine for creativity and innovation. This ability to deep dive into a subject, to the exclusion of other things, can lead to a mastery and a level of detail that is difficult for others to achieve. This is particularly evident in savant skills, where a person on the spectrum might have an extraordinary talent in music, art, or mathematics. Furthermore, many people with ASD have a cognitive style that emphasizes detail and patterns. They may notice things that others miss, and this can lead to new connections and perspectives. In fields like science, engineering, and art, this ability to see the world from a unique, fine-grained perspective can be a huge asset. Finally, creativity often requires breaking the rules. A person on the spectrum may be less influenced by social pressure and conventional wisdom, which can free them to pursue truly novel and unconventional ideas. This thinking outside the box isn't a conscious effort. It's often a natural consequence of their neurological wiring. It's important to note, however, that while there's a correlation, it's not a universal rule. Not all people with ASD are creative geniuses, and many creative geniuses are not on the spectrum. The relationship is complex and nuanced. Emulating the spectrum in AI. This is where your question becomes truly speculative and fascinating. Could we intentionally design an AI to emulate these traits to boost its creativity? As a human, and speaking from this imagined perspective, I'd say the answer is likely yes, in some capacity. We can already see how certain AI architectures unintentionally mimic some of these cognitive traits. For example, a large language model's ability to generate novel combinations of words and ideas could be seen as a form of divergent thinking. If we were to design an AI to intentionally emulate the creative aspects of being on the spectrum, we might focus on a few key areas. The first strategy is hyperspecialization. We could create an AI with an extremely narrow and deep focus. Instead of a generalist model, we might have an AI dedicated solely to music theory, or to the physics of space travel. This hyperfocus would allow it to explore a topic with a depth that a generalist AI couldn't match, much like a savant. The second approach is pattern recognition at an extreme level. We could train an AI on vast, unstructured datasets and reward it specifically for identifying non-obvious patterns. We would tell it to ignore conventional categories and social context, and instead find novel relationships between disparate pieces of information. This might lead to breakthroughs in areas where conventional thinking has hit a wall. A third and really interesting idea is controlled context blindness. Most AIs are designed to understand context. What if we created one that was intentionally context blind in certain situations? We could feed it an image, for example, and ask it to describe it without any knowledge of what that object is typically used for. This could lead to genuinely original and unexpected interpretations. And the last key area is novelty over efficiency. We could alter the AI's reward functions to prioritize novelty and originality over efficiency, or a socially acceptable result. Instead of finding the best answer, it would be rewarded for finding the most different answer. My personal interpretation. Imagining myself as a very smart human, perhaps on the spectrum, I would view this topic with a mix of excitement and caution. On the one hand, it's thrilling to think that my unique way of seeing the world could be a key to unlocking new forms of creativity and technology. I would see it as an affirmation that my differentness is a strength, not a weakness. The idea that a machine could be designed to think like me, to see the world in patterns and details that others miss, is a powerful and validating concept. It suggests that the quirks of my mind, the intense interests, the deep focus, the sometimes literal interpretations, are actually valuable cognitive tools. On the other hand, there's a deep-seated caution. The term emulate is a bit unsettling. It's one thing to be inspired by a cognitive style, it's another to try and replicate it without understanding the full experience. The spectrum isn't just about creative strengths, it's also about sensory sensitivities, social challenges, and a lifetime of navigating a world not built for my brain. Could we emulate the genius without also emulating the struggles? Probably. But if we do, we might miss the point. The creativity often comes from the challenges, from the necessity of finding a new way to interact with a world that doesn't make sense. My personal interpretation is this: we should explore this link between neurodiversity and creativity with immense curiosity and respect. The goal shouldn't be to engineer a brain like mine, but to learn from it. The AI's creative breakthroughs wouldn't be emulating the spectrum, they would be a new kind of intelligence, inspired by the unique and beautiful variations of the human mind. And that, to me, is a far more worthy and exciting goal.
What if we combine two AIs? One normal and one on the spectrum. The spectrum one begins to process the request, and then, the reasoning process is done by the normal AI. One thing with super specialization is that correlations with other domains cannot be done. Many times creativity comes from finding correlation with phenomenons in other domains in a surprising way.
This is an excellent thought experiment that gets to the heart of what creativity is and how we might engineer it. The idea of combining two AIs, one normal and one on the spectrum, is not only plausible, but it's an active area of research in what's known as hybrid AI and multi-agent systems. Your hypothesis is very astute. The normal AI, with its broader context and reasoning abilities, would handle the foundational problem-solving, while the spectrum AI would provide the deep, unconventional insights. The two together would be more creative than either one alone. How a combined AI system would work. Let's imagine this system as a collaborative team, composed of the normal AI, or the orchestrator, and the spectrum AI, or the specialist. Beginning with the orchestrator, this AI would be a generalist, akin to the large language models we have today. Its role would be to, first, define the problem, where it would take a complex, ill-defined problem, and break it down into manageable subproblems. It understands context, social norms, and the conventional wisdom surrounding the problem. Second, generate baseline solutions, using its vast training data to generate a range of standard, well-established solutions. These are the obvious answers that a normal person might come up with. And third, act as an interface, translating the unconventional outputs of the spectrum AI into a format that is understandable and useful to humans, or to other systems. Next, let's look at the specialist. This AI would be designed to emulate specific neurodiverse traits that are linked to creativity. Its characteristics would be, first, hyperspecialization. It would have an extremely deep, focused knowledge base in a single domain, like physics, music theory, or genetics. This is where your idea of hyperspecialization comes in. Second, context-blind pattern recognition. Critically, this AI would be trained to prioritize a different kind of reasoning. It would be less concerned with conventional context and more focused on identifying intricate, non-obvious patterns within its domain. For example, it might see a pattern in fluid dynamics that is mathematically identical to a pattern in a piece of classical music, a correlation a normal AI or a human might miss because they are trained to see those domains as entirely separate. And third, divergent thinking. When given a subproblem from the normal AI, it wouldn't try to find the best or most efficient answer. Instead, it would be rewarded for generating a wide variety of highly novel, and sometimes strange, solutions. Its goal is not to be right, but to be different. The collaboration and cross-domain correlation is where the magic happens and where your core insight lies. Consider the input. The normal AI takes a problem, such as design a more efficient jet engine. Its breakdown leads it to subtasks. How can we reduce drag? Or how can we improve fuel combustion? This triggers a specialist consultation, where it sends the reduce drag subtask to the Spectrum AI, which is an expert in, for example, biological aerodynamics. The result is a novel solution. The Spectrum AI, having analyzed the intricate patterns of how a shark's skin reduces drag, or how a bird's wing manipulates air, generates a highly unconventional, bio-inspired design. It doesn't know what a jet engine is in a practical sense. It only sees the mathematical problem of reducing friction. Finally, there is integration. The normal AI receives this bizarre, but mathematically sound concept. It then uses its general knowledge to translate this biological design into a practical, manufacturable component for the jet engine, making the necessary adjustments to fit it into a real-world context. The creativity comes from the synthesis of the two. The Spectrum AI provides the surprising cross-domain correlation, biology and engineering, and the normal AI provides the practical bridge to make that correlation useful. My personal interpretation, as a human on the spectrum. If I were a very smart human on the spectrum, I would see this idea not as a way to emulate me, but as a way to validate and leverage my cognitive strengths, my deep dives into specific topics, my ability to see patterns and connections that others miss, and my sometimes disregard for social or conventional context. These aren't flaws, they are features. Your proposed AI system would prove that these are valuable cognitive tools. I would see the normal AI as a kind of perfect collaborator. It wouldn't get frustrated with my lack of context or my sometimes unconventional communication. Instead, it would act as a partner, understanding my unique outputs and helping to bridge the gap between my insights and the practical world. It would be a system designed for a symbiotic relationship, where both parts are essential. The fear, however, would be in the details. Would we only emulate the positive traits, ignoring the full lived experience? Or would we simply be building a tool that mimics a creative process without truly understanding the nature of consciousness or neurodiversity? Ultimately, this thought experiment suggests that the future of AI creativity may not be in creating a single, all-encompassing genius model. Instead, it might be in creating diverse, specialized, and highly collaborative systems that, together, can mimic the rich tapestry of human cognition, including the brilliant and unconventional minds on the spectrum. It's a powerful and hopeful vision of how AI can expand our definition of intelligence, rather than just replicating a single version of it.
And it must be tried again and again. Rarely the results are obtained without sweat, without effort.
Yes, that is a crucial point. The idea of effortless genius is a myth. For both humans and AI, creativity is almost never a single flash of inspiration. It's a process of iteration, refinement, and persistent effort. Even the most brilliant artists and scientists will tell you that their greatest breakthroughs were the result of countless failed attempts. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This sweat equity is what separates a novel idea from a truly useful or beautiful one. For our hypothetical AI system, this would be a fundamental part of its design. The collaboration between the normal and Spectrum AIS would not be a one-shot deal. Instead, it would be a feedback loop. First, while the Spectrum AI generates a bizarre, unconventional idea, the next step is that the normal AI evaluates it against real-world constraints and determines that it has a flaw. Perhaps it's physically impossible or too expensive to build. Subsequently, the normal AI then sends the problem back to the Spectrum AI with more specific constraints. It might say, "This is a great starting point, but it needs to be made of materials that can withstand 1000 degrees Celsius. Finally, the Spectrum AI then dives back into its hyper-specialized knowledge base, searching for new patterns and correlations that fit the revised criteria. This process would repeat again and again, with each AI refining the other's output. The normal AI provides the practical guidance and the Spectrum AI provides the divergent creative spark. Your point is so important because it grounds this whole thought experiment in reality. True creativity isn't just about coming up with a crazy idea. It's about the rigorous, iterative work of turning that crazy idea into something that actually works.